I tried so hard to let go, writing poetry and rhymes just to get you off my mind. It's either yes or it's no. I'm not a yo-yo on a string that you flip and twist and swing. I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, second guessing your words, 'cause you choke right when I see that you're all I really need. But if I'm honest, I know this whole thing has been a sign that I'm running out of time. I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, you don't get everything you like, yeah. You don't get everything you like, yeah, 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 yeah. No. I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready, I'm not gonna vibe tonight. You don't get everything you like, 'cause I'm not ready. If I'm not ready,
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Everybody, welcome to Meanwhile Back at the Lab with Paximus. I hope you're having a wonderful day, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening. I'm really glad that you're here with us, spending some time out of your day to do what I like to call just a nice little conversation. It's just a friendly conversation with other people around the world, and it just so happens that I get to have a conversation with someone a little bit closer to home. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk with Billy, who is our special guest for today. If you haven't done so already, I would really love for you to check the description below. I have everything listed for Billy's information and how to contact him, and also his YouTube channel. So please go and subscribe to Billy Mcmahon. And in just a little bit, we're going to go ahead and have our conversation with Billy. But before we do that, I definitely wanted to tell you guys about something that's coming up that you might or might not know about. It's this Monday on this channel, Monday, November the 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific Daytime, or GMT -8. We are going to be announcing a pretty big we're just going to make a big announcement, and it has something to do with other study streamers. So the question is, who's going to be showing up? So I'd love for you to join us in that conversation on Monday, November 1st at 10 a.m. GMT -8. And if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and reach out to me through either the Discord or even through the chat later on today. And if you do have a question for Billy at any point in time, please feel free to put it in the chat. Just type in all caps question and then whatever question that you would like to ask Billy. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into our conversation with none other than Billy Mcmahon. Billy, thank you so much for being here. It's good to have you here, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Paximus. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm excited.
Awesome. So, Billy, if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and how did you kind of get to the idea of YouTube and live streaming for YouTube? When did all that happen? If you can kind of just break down how things started for you, was it a gradual thing, or did you just one day like think, oh, I'm just gonna go on YouTube?
Yeah, so for me, I began my master's program in applied physiology at the University of Miami. Um, I started in August of this year, and I, always had problems, staying accountable and staying consistent with studying, like everyone else has had before. So I kind of, tried to think outside the box. Well, how can I hold myself accountable while, building a community and, just studying consistently every day to, get better grades. And so I had been introduced to James Schultz
Mm-hmm.
through Study With Me. He's like the gold standard in terms of
Yeah.
this community. Yeah, and so that was a huge inspiration. I thought he was, what he did was really great, and
Mhm.
so I decided, why not give it a try as well, and that's how I got started on it.
Now you do something kind of unique because I actually came across your study with me live stream. Probably it about a month ago, maybe. I want to say a month, maybe something like
Yeah,
that.
around a month.
Yeah, and I noticed that you do something quite unique on your breaks, and it has a talent. Like there's a talent that you have that I'd love for you to just kind of tell us like when did that come through? Like, did you just think I'm just gonna start playing something, or like just for your breaks, or what do you normally do for your breaks? Is that like a one time thing, or how's that go?
Yeah, so that was a one-time thing. For my breaks, usually either get something to eat, go to the bathroom, or just go outside to get some fresh air.
Hmm.
Um, that day what you're referring to is like when I played the piano, like a live stream piano event.
Yeah.
That was yeah. I just had finished studying for like 6 hours, and I needed kind of more of a creative outlet, and decided, you know what, I'll just go and play the piano. So
Right, right.
yeah.
And Billy, just real quick, we don't have video constant feed from you. We can
I
hear you
see.
perfectly fine. Do you want to? It's totally up to you. Would you like to maybe log out real quick and log back in and see if that helps?
Yep, for sure. I'll try that
Yeah,
right now.
and go ahead and do that, and I'll carry on for just a second. Okay, so while we're trying to get Billy back in just a second, because I noticed that we had a little bit of a video connectivity issue. Again, for those of you who may not know, if you're just joining us, this Monday, November the 1st, at 10 a.m. GMT -8, we will be having a big announcement on this channel. So I highly recommend, if you haven't done so already, to go ahead and go to the page. It's actually on my homepage, where you can hit the link or the banner, and just make that as a notification so you know when we go live. And I'm going to bring in Billy again. Let's see if that helps. Okay, perfect. Much better.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, that looks much better, and it seems like our connectivity is pretty good. So, anyways, Billy, so Could you tell us a little bit of like with James Schultz as being kind of like the gold standard, right? He's the one who's been trailblazing this quite a bit and getting quite a bit of I would say publicity in some ways because of the fact that he's been doing what he's been doing for like the last year. Um, you know, I kind of want to know what your take is on his work ethic in terms of doing it, 12 hours a day for a whole year, as he pointed out, in one of his videos. What do you make of that? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so he definitely has a strong why as to why he, decided to embark on that journey for a full
Hmm.
year of studying 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, I can guarantee you that, there were several times along that journey where he, felt like quitting,
Yeah.
or was just feeling burnt out. But, he persevered every single day. And I think in part that had to do with the accountability that he had from his
Mhm.
community.
Yeah.
Um, and he was making a positive impact on others, so he wanted to push forward every single day to help others study.
Hmm.
And he did recently have to take a break, and he's kind of dialed back in terms of how much he studies. He has a second channel where he studies now,
Hmm.
where it's only like once or twice a week.
Right.
And I think that was for the best, because that while that was super impressive what he did, it's not sustainable long term.
Yeah. Yeah, and in talking about the sustainability, because this has gone, this is one of the heavy topics I think, especially within our community for like study streamers and for those who study with us for long hours. We tend to study for maybe 12 to 14 hours a day sometimes, and then there's other study streamers who can only do 6 because that's they have full time jobs or things like that. I'm kind of curious to know what your approach is, knowing that you believe that something like that can't be sustained. What are your thoughts on your approach to not only study methods, but your approach to how many hours? Does the amount of hours equal a certain amount of success, or is it just like what's required in order for you to learn what you're learning?
Well, I believe there's a bell curve in terms of the number of hours that relates to how much you're getting out in terms of how much you're recalling,
Mm-hmm.
how much of the information is basically getting into your brain.
Hmm.
Um, for example, if you're sitting, at the desk doing the Pomodoro method for 9, 10 hours on end, um,
Yeah.
at one point you're going to start getting mentally fatigued unless
Yeah.
you've kind of built up that stamina.
Hmm.
I know for me, I could not do that. I could maybe do that for a week, like during finals week,
Right.
but any more than really a few weeks, it starts affecting just other aspects of life that you kind of need to
Mm.
balance out. If you're just studying 10 hours every day and you're neglecting food,
Yeah.
friendships, outside time, like getting sunlight, vitamin D,
Yeah.
that will affect, your studying itself in terms of, memory,
Hmm.
how much you recall in the exams. So really, you have to do what works best for you. For me, I've recently started internships,
Mm.
so I've had to dial back on uploading every day, like time-lapse videos.
Hmm.
For me, I'll only be doing live streams, and because that's what makes sense to me the most. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, getting the degree is number one for me.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of your degree, did you know before you went into college what it is that you wanted to do, or has it been a process of trying to figure out what it is you want to do?
Oh, it's been a process. I definitely did not have the idea starting out. I've probably changed career paths 3, 4 times throughout
Mm.
my undergraduate and graduate career.
Hmm.
Um, but I found whether this can be attributed to the pandemic or not. After I graduated, I did my last semester of undergrad as the pandemic kind of transitioned and took over our lives.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
so, and then I took a year off and kind of reflected on what I wanted to do, and I, stumbled across this company called Soccer Shots. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
Um, Basically, they have franchises all across the U.S.
Hmm.
and basically, you are coaching 2 to 8 year olds, basically on soccer skills, the fundamentals of the game, and
Mm.
really building like character and self-esteem. Um, while being silly, goofy, making sure like their energy is up,
Right.
and all that stuff. And so that was super fulfilling. That was probably the best job I've ever had.
Hmm.
And so it was there I kind of discovered that I love working with kids.
Mm.
And so I kind of, uh, decided my career path would, be working with kids, specifically the elementary school,
Hmm.
in a physical education like environment,
Hmm.
and I'd also like to teach health as well. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and being in education, we've kind of I feel like we've also have a similar story in the sense that it took a while to kind of get where our thought process was, because I may have changed like 5 times, in the process of undergrad. And then once I got into like my master's, it was already decided that, okay, I know this is exactly what I want to do. I'm kind of curious, what was it about working with like elementary school that you feel is perhaps your niche, versus middle school or even high school for that matter?
Yeah, so for elementary school, well, to be honest, I haven't actually worked like in an internship type setting
Hmm.
in middle schools or high schools.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, all my exposure regarding work experience has been with 2 to 12 year olds, so
Right.
pre-K all the way to the end of elementary,
Hmm.
and that's where I have found to be most happiest. I work really well with the kids.
Hmm.
Kids those days are very impressionable, and they mirror your energy and vibe.
Hmm.
So for me, whenever I worked in that setting with that demographic, I've always been very energetic, silly. uh, you know uh, for kids in school, they're usually bored, uh, depending on the teacher and the class and the subject.
Hmm.
So if kids are going into class kind of bored, kind of just going with the motions, you want to be that teacher that brings kind of some excitement and energy, because that will facilitate with student engagement. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
definitely why I chose like the elementary preschool demographic.
And how do you know at this point how long of a track that you're on until you're able to like be in a classroom setting? Do you know yet, or is that you're still learning what the process looks like?
So yeah, I would graduate from my master's program this May,
Oh, perfect.
May of next year, so
Mm-hmm.
2022,
Mm-hmm.
and then there'd be summer, and then during that summer I'd probably be applying to schools and
Very
trying to land
cool.
my first job. Yeah.
Oh man, that's exciting. And for me, I just remember just going into a classroom for the very first time. And I will say this, just to kind of like just to put it out there for a little bit. But the first time I was in a classroom setting, I wasn't nervous because it was a technical arts director position that I was actually involved in, and I was teaching an elective class for middle school. It's actually fifth grade, my first class. So in fifth grade, I taught, and I thought to myself, I know everything there is to know about this, technology thing, and then to teach fifth graders, that's like easy, right? It's easy money right there. Man, at the end of the class, I literally looked up and I was like, what am I doing with my life right now? Like it was one of those like scary moments that I thought I knew what I was involved in. I knew the curriculum. I knew everything that I needed to know in order to teach. And for some reason, I was just like, what's happening? And the reason why I say this is because over time, I think I realized in hindsight, looking back, that that's exactly where I needed to be, though. And I was super passionate about being with those students, but it made me realize, oh, but I need to be more prepared. I need to be able to like really methodically think through how this plan is going to look like for every different type of learner. And I think by the end of that semester, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm getting into a good rhythm. And so, a couple of people who were highly influential to me were the ones who helped me through that process, even before I got into teaching. I'm curious to know, has there been anybody that you think or comes to mind who really highly influenced you to just, like kind of pursue this a little bit more? Or was this just like, I'm with the 2 to, 12-year-olds, I think you mentioned. I just feel like I need to be in a classroom setting with these kids because I love them. They're awesome.
Yeah, so in terms of role models, really, I had never had a role model up to this point for the education setting,
Mm,
specifically the elementary setting.
yeah.
My mother is a speech language pathologist, so she works
Oh,
with special needs kids, children with autism,
yeah.
and I had already known. I did a take your child to work day when I was much younger, and that requires a lot of patience. And
Mm,
she is amazing at her job, and it was a very rewarding, fulfilling career um, that she has partaken in. And
mm-hmm.
um, I've also like volunteered in the past in summer camps. So I would, and again, it'd be in the elementary school setting. So
Mm-hmm.
I had always had a background with kids, but it wasn't
Right.
until really after or in the midst of the pandemic that I considered it to be a profession, potential
Right.
profession. Um, but it was really during Soccer Shots that that company that I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
beforehand that I actually worked one with the kids, that I found it to be rewarding, fulfilling, and something that I enjoyed. So really, if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to put your best foot forward. If you're not passionate in a career, which I've had plenty of jobs where I could really care less, or it was really a struggle to go into work every day,
Mm-hmm.
and that it kind of shows in your work ethic and the quality of work that you produce. And really, it just shouldn't be that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, and someone once told me that there's a level of intrinsic value and extrinsic value to look forward to as a teacher, as an educator, and I only bring this up because for me, I had to actually think through, am I going in for a monetary issue? Because that's not going to happen. you know, I had to realize that that's not gonna be the case. We've been asking for extra resources, and we're not getting there. But I'm kind of curious to know for you, like, do you know that has been an issue and still continues to be an issue with education, and how does that fit with your plan is for education, knowing that there's a lot of things that are happening in education right now that are there's a lot of bumps in the road, so to speak. So tell me what you think is kind of like your mindset when it comes to all that right now.
Oh, definitely. Teachers have been underpaid and underappreciated for years and
Yeah.
years on end.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows this, but not much has been done. Um, and a common, or maybe not so common, occurrence that you see is teachers, maybe 20, 30 years in their field.
Hmm.
Um, they have to work another job or even two other jobs to
Yeah.
sustain themselves or their children. Um,
Mm,
and for some teachers, what you unfortunately see is kind of a resentment in how
yeah.
little they get paid,
Hmm.
and that affects their quality of work, and
Mm,
then that unfortunately affects the children that they are teaching to.
yeah.
Um, so at that point, really, if you find yourself as a teacher starting to neglect your students, I think it'd be in everyone's best interest if you find another career path, because children, students, they really deserve the best. And
Yeah.
So that's just, my opinion.
And I will ask another question in just a little bit. We do have a question from Walking Bread, which thank you for your question. The question for you, Billy, is how has self confidence helped you in moving ahead in life?
Yeah, so really with anything you kind of want to pursue in life,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely have to have a lot of self-confidence, even, if you have to fake it till you make it.
Mm,
Faking it till you make it will eventually turn into, you know, genuine confidence.
mm,
Um, so whether you are, taking a test, whether you are, trying to get better at the gym,
mm-hmm.
trying to improve your diet and health,
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to approach all these aspects and avenues of your life thinking that you are at an elite level,
Mm,
because everything starts in the brain, your belief system, and then that transitions into your actions.
mm,
If you have kind of this mindset where I don't know if I can accomplish any of these things, what's the point?
yeah.
Maybe they can do it, but I can't because of X, Y, and Z excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's something that needs to be addressed. So self confidence, even if you have to fake it till you make it, everything you pursue in life, any aspect, any avenue, think that you are the best or
Mm,
one of the best.
mm. That's that, and I would say like kind of what I'm kind of getting from that is uh be committed to just show up is really like be committed to showing up because even if you don't feel confident, the more you consistently do it in a way where you're working through it, versus like I can't, it's the fight or flight or freeze, aspect. If someone continues to kind of, you know, say like I can't do it, I'm comparing myself to this person, they've gotten so far, I can barely do this or that. There seems to be a lot of negativity that comes from somewhere, right? It comes from somewhere, and you tend to believe it. Then you're not going to move any further than where you are at that point, right? So I think for me, what I'm like a key word here is show up. Really, it's be able to just show up and go through the steps. Fake it till you make it, going through the steps is a way of showing up and just saying I'm going to continue doing the best I can. And hopefully over time you start to realize that, oh, I actually am accomplishing quite a bit, and I'm being confident now because I know I can do things, and so I wanted to also say something about kind of like I wanted to go into mental health actually. Now, in this last year with what's been happening around the world, I'm kind of curious to know what your take is on mental health, being the fact that we were locked down for quite some time, or at least it felt that way. But we were down for quite some time, and then we, um, were, if you will, physically distanced from each other, but we had social interactions in terms of being online and everything like that. Was there any time for you that was affecting you, that was making you think like you couldn't be confident in something? Or, tell us a little bit about your experience during that last year.
Yeah, so that last year was extremely difficult for everyone. I'm no exception. I definitely struggled, both emotionally, physically, mentally,
Mm,
during that time. Because for many of us, that was an unprecedented time. No
mm-hmm,
one knew how to adapt to that. You saw both, on the news and just a bunch of contradicting information, a lot of ambiguity, a
mm-hmm.
lot of, basically fear. And
Yeah.
that will take, a negative toll on anyone's mental health. I don't
Mm,
care how strong your willpower is.
yeah.
Um, in that instance, sometimes it is okay to just, do your best every day to just survive.
Yeah.
You don't have to accomplish, you know, or shoot for the stars. if that is too much for you, if that's going to negatively impact your health,
Mm.
in a situation like that, you do as much as you are comfortable with, because
Mm-hmm.
that situation, it was unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
As we're transitioning out of that, though, and you're, you know, can adjust a little more, and things are, starting to reach a point of normalcy again,
Yeah.
then you can, start to begin, your life endeavors. Like, we can finally start going back to the gyms. The gyms are now open,
Mm-hmm.
and you can, start to make progress in other areas of your life. Um, I want to touch on a quick point on the question: how did self-confidence
Mm-hmm.
help you
Yeah,
move ahead in life?
I'll bring it back
So,
up.
yeah, so while self-confidence is something you definitely need, you also need to have some accountability. So when I
Mm.
was doing a live stream a couple days ago, one of my viewers asked me, how do you keep so disciplined and motivated, showing up every single day to study? And I gave him, I think, is a great answer. I'll share it with everyone now. It's
Yeah.
um, so we know that most people go to 9 to 5 jobs and they have a boss to report to.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to study, whether it's in the library or at home, um, imagine if you had your phone out and you were scrolling through social media, or any other distraction while you were supposed to be studying.
Mm-hmm.
So now imagine you were doing the same thing, scrolling through YouTube with your boss right next to you at
Yeah.
your wherever you work at your job. What would the result be? You would
Mm.
get fired, or you would be
Yeah.
laid off. And at that point, you know, now your bills become in jeopardy. How am I going to keep a roof over my head?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that sense of pressure um, that is at the workplace, but
Yeah.
not necessarily where you're studying. So if you can kind of replicate that scenario where you have a
Mm.
boss, like, right on top of you or hovering around, that's making sure you're studying, that will keep you focused.
That's a very good tip. That is helpful advice, and I think more people need to consider that for sure, because you wouldn't do that necessarily if there was, your boss next to you. So, like, consider the mirroring the same thing, and you'll even see the results. The results of being able to study and to study well and to learn what you need to learn and accomplish whatever, whether it's homework or exams. We do have another question that that I wanted to put in here in the chat. Queen's Corner TV, who's a study streamer, is in the chat, so it's nice to see you, Queen. Thank you for being here. Walking Bread has a question of how do you deal with the anxiety when you are trying to fake it till you make it? That's a good question.
Okay, so in my particular case, when I was most anxious, for example, say when I was about to give a presentation
Mm,
to my class, the butterflies start kicking in, your heart starts beating. It's kind of mimicking that flight or flight response.
right.
This is something, a quote from Conor McGregor,
Uh huh.
UFC fighter.
Yeah.
He says, to lower anxiety, you have to prepare much, more.
Mm,
Basically, how well you're prepared, the lower anxiety you'll have.
uh
If
huh.
you are extremely prepared for whatever you're doing, whether it's a test, a presentation, your
Yeah.
anxiety is going to be much lower.
Yeah.
If, like most students, you're cramming for an exam, or you've not put in the amount of hours to, studying the material as you should have, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be much more anxious, because
Yeah.
what if I don't pass this exam? I'm not that well prepared. Versus someone who has solidified the information and they have true confidence because they put in the work and the
Yeah.
time to master the material.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I would say that that's like similar with musicians. I will say that from like my own experience, whenever I would play in front of people, I used to do it for like quite some time, and I think you understand this very well because you're also a musician. You play piano and you play really well, by the way. It's just, like you're playing that jazz music, and I was like, that's nice. That's gospel chops that he's starting to play. I started putting that in the live stream because I was like, oh, he's got all these like really cool chords. But I noticed that when I, do it every weekend or, a performance here and there, but I'm not prepared and I'm just basing it off of the fact that, well, I have the experience. I've done this a million times before, going up on stage and playing for people. And I'm relying on the fact that I can read music and that's not a big deal. I know the music, whatever. But when I get there, I actually get flustered sometimes because then, there's a quick change that has to happen. And all of a sudden something, changes and you're like, wait, okay, well, it's no big deal. But you don't even realize in that change how much more anxious you became because you weren't prepared. You didn't study, you didn't, figure any of your parts down. Well, in the same vein, like what you were saying, the more prepared you are, the less anxiety you're going to feel. So a lot of it has to do perhaps with time management, being able to kind of plan out, oh, this is how much time I need to dedicate to, preparing for my homework to be done or my, exam or my thesis or whatever the case may be. And I totally would agree with you. You have to prepare. You have to absolutely prepare in order to lower the anxiety. And perhaps some people feel overwhelmed by it and can't move forward because they're like, there's just too much. That's why time management is a big tool as part of the study stream habits, that we have. We'll get into another question here. Let's see. It is from Joea is a study streamer. Thank you, Joea, for being here. It's good to see you. Sid, thank you for being here. Question. Okay, so the question is, did you have any toxic friends in your life? If you had any, how do you deal with them?
Yeah, so me personally, I wouldn't say I had really any uh, notable toxic friends.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, if you do have toxic friends in your life or any toxic individual that you cannot kind of avoid, so this could be someone in your workplace, you really have to fight tooth and nail to kind of rectify the situation, because if you don't do something, you kind of just let it slide every single time, it's going to perpetuate. So, for example, if I had a troublesome coworker at my job, after the first or second instance that they're being, toxic, I would, if I didn't want to address them face to face, I would, contact my supervisor or manager, and I would, tell them, hey, this is a situation that needs to be rectified. I need your help in, solving this issue. When it comes to toxic friends, you just have to distance yourself. If they're affecting your mental health, you just got to block their number, and stop talking to them, because, your mental health, you come first in a relationship. Relationships are meant to kind of be like 50-50. You're supposed to uplift each other up.
Yeah.
And if that is not the case, then it's really not worth your time or energy.
Yeah, definitely. I agree for sure. We have another question here from Walking Bread. Is it internal or external factors that gives you the motivation to be productive?
So for me, it would be internal. The fact that I can, impact my future students in a positive way really motivates me to, do my best in school and in my future teaching lessons. And, because if you think about it, if you ask the average student what they think about school, they typically give you a negative response, or that it's boring, it's uninteresting, I can't wait to get out of there. I want to be a teacher that, breaks all those boundaries. I want students to look forward to my classes. I can already, envision it. I would start every class with like a funny icebreaker to get the students in a positive mood,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of get them laughing. So that would, facilitate with student engagement in my particular case. Um, but, what you typically see is, students going to class uninterested, kind of
Mm-hmm.
bored. And for me, like, that's what motivates me to, try my best now, get all the groundwork done. So
Mm-hmm.
when I can start teaching, I would be, serving my students as best I could.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I would say also there's another question that I wanted to bring in that has a lot to do with mental health, and it's the fact that I remember going on to your homepage on your YouTube channel, and I noticed that there was a couple of videos that you had uploaded that had to do with exercise, and specifically I think you were deadlifting. I could be wrong, but I think you were doing some sort of maybe it was squats or something like that. But how important is doing exercise for your mental health, and also does it make you more productive in your study time?
Yeah, so absolutely, both. It improves, how you study, and it
Hmm.
improves your mental health as well. Uh, I could go ahead and try and cite, you know, thousands of research articles that, uh, or papers in the scientific literature that state yes, exercise has beneficial effects on your mental health, on
Mm,
like improvement of, cardiovascular symptoms,
right.
um, reversing aging, all this stuff. Um, but yeah, you definitely need to prioritize, I would say, your, physical well-being,
Hmm.
both emotionally, physical, and mental health,
Hmm.
and then kind of that will translate into better studying because an improved mood from exercising, getting fresh air, getting having a good diet, regularly exercising
Hmm.
will help you recall the information that you're studying for an exam.
Yeah.
Um, Typically, I can speak anecdotally. When I was neglecting all these things in the past, not exercising, just basically living from one test to another, studying
Hmm.
for exams, and that was my whole life, not hanging out with any friends.
Yeah.
That's when I was most irritable,
Yeah.
and that affected, just how I studied. I couldn't focus as long
Mm,
as I typically could.
right.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with you on that because, the people around me were like, "Dude, what's the matter with you? Like, why are you acting so like, so cold almost?" And then, I would be studying in here for like hours. It'd be 6, 8, sometimes 10, even 11 and 12. I think on occasion because I was trying to study for a test. And I noticed that just the more that I did over and over, it just I think it affected my relationships really like in a bad way, to where I had to then kind of pull the reins a little bit and just realize like, okay, the people who are especially closest to me, who I really care about, are they're trying to tell me something and I'm like snapping at them, or I'm just irritable, like not even a Snickers bar could help, like it wasn't, nothing was working, and so I had to just take some time off. And it was until I had this conversation with a close friend of mine, who heard that we had an argument here at my house, and it was all me. Like I'm the one who even started it, and he's like, what's going on, dude? Like what's going on? So and I through that conversation, I like it just for whatever reason made sense. Like maybe you're doing too much. Too much of the studying, not enough of going outside, getting exercise, taking a walk, going, to talk with your family or your friends, or anything that requires less like brain power and more creativity, or just, trying to get good energy, if you will. So we do have another question from Sid. And the question is, any opinion on toxic productivity, which is kind of what
Yeah.
we're really touching on is like, some people do, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, Billy, and I'd love to hear what you think on this because it's really this is the question. But there's study streamers who do like 12, 14, 15 hours, and it's a bit mind blowing. This is where that mindset of toxic productivity is starting to stem from. So this question is, what's your opinion on toxic productivity?
Yeah, so toxic productivity is something really that's kind of prevalent in modern society. It's
Mm,
not just in study streamers, it's like
mm,
entrepreneurial endeavors, the business world,
right,
uh, trying to out hustle everybody 24/7, getting
right.
2 hours of sleep, being like an Elon Musk. Um,
Yeah.
so you have to kind of ask yourself, you know, yes, I could study for 15 hours a day, but is the, you know, benefit ratio kind of congruent with the disadvantages?
Mm,
Um, if the benefits are, not outweighing the disadvantages of studying for, 15 hours a day,
yeah.
then you have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Me personally, as I reflected like on my undergraduate career, if I could have just dedicated 2 to 4 hours every single day, or even 6 days a week to studying, I could have easily had a 4.0,
Mm,
upon graduation.
yeah.
But what I typically did was I would, procrastinate, and then 2, 3 days before the exam, I'd be, pulling 10, 12 hour study sessions.
Yeah.
Um, so my kind of response is it's unnecessary to study that much. And you will burn out eventually. I mean, it even happened with James Schultz. I have nothing but respect for the guy.
Totally.
But
We
he even,
both do.
he
Yeah.
made, he made the post that he had to. He made a community post where he had to say, "Hey, for my mental health, I need to cut back."
Mm,
Um, so I would say it's okay for at times for you to study 12 to 15 hours.
yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary, but that
Mm-hmm.
should not be long term. And
Yeah.
for toxic productivity, if people are trying to persuade you to out hustle everybody else, um, my guess is that they wouldn't even be putting their money where their mouth is if you were to
Mm,
dissect what they're doing during their day.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about the productivity, I wanted to touch on the fact that you do have a TikTok, by the way. So for those of you who haven't done so already, look in the description right now. You'll see that he has a TikTok. It should be listed there. If it's not, I'll make sure that it is. But you have a TikTok in which you show like study hacks, study tips, and productivity. Is there anything that comes up particularly to you right now where you feel like that would benefit the community, just being able to hear like what the most effective study tips or approaches or methods that you've come to know throughout your time as a study streamer so far?
Yeah, so I mean, I have several posts, but if I had to like summarize it into a few sentences, it would be to kind of make your life a routine. But the thing with that is routines eventually they get boring, and
Mm,
that's why people kind of stop doing them.
mm-hmm,
If you can find a way to make a routine where you putting one brick at a time, getting
mm-hmm.
closer to your goals, while still allowing some spontaneity and fun within that routine,
Yeah.
keeping it as simple as possible. Keep it simple, stupid. um, yeah, it
Yeah.
really is something to live by. If whatever you're doing is too complex, or it's like a struggle every day when you wake up to like stick to the routine you set out for yourself, you're not going to stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
So make a routine that's like manageable, that's simple, uh, and that you can stick to long term, and that
Totally.
will really propel you as a student, uh, in really any aspect of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Billy, we are going to have to wrap up our time here, but before we do that, I actually wanted to ask you if there is anything that you would like to just kind of impart with the rest of the community. For those of you who are listening right now or just watching this in real time, this is also going to be available as an audio podcast on all audio podcast platforms. So, but Billy, if there's anything, any tips or any thoughts that you have on just your studying, or maybe a favorite quote, something that you live by, something, an encouraging word for this community, do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, so definitely something I live by, and I try to like make a conscious decision, not decision, but kind of consciously think about it every day. It's the word resolve, and resolve basically means that if you want something, bad enough, that you will find a way to make it work. You won't make any excuses. So live kind of like your life and whatever goals you're trying to achieve, with such a strong resolve that, no one can, you'll be immovable in your resolve to achieve your goals. That's kind of how I live my life, and I would encourage your viewers to do the same.
Definitely. Billy, this has been awesome. I really have enjoyed this conversation with you and getting to know you, and being able to talk with you about these study habits, about your approach to them, and then taking the questions also from the chat. Thank you, Walking Bread and Sid, for being here, and Joea, who's another study streamer, and so is Queen's Corner TV. Guys, I'm so happy that we had the chance to just have this conversation with Billy. If you haven't done so already, I would love for you to go ahead and check the description below. In the description below, you should see all of Billy's information, his YouTube channel, his email and TikTok, ways that you can get a hold of him. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up right now. Remember, this Monday, November 1st at 10 a.m. GMT -8, we are going to have a very special live stream, so don't miss it. But until then, remember, be kind and rewind. Have a good day, and we'll see you later. Hadouken!